Because most of the time, I think you go buy something there. What is this?
Where's the boy? Oh.
Everyone's taxes jump. I can't believe that you should have it's almost done.
Somebody.
That's the problem, right? You get more money, but then everything else is more pleasing.
Okay.
House.
Oh, yeah.
Some scouts. Trustee Valadares, I'm scouting.
Yeah.
You got Chad going over here, you get him to scout. Scout for our house.
Oh, scout, oh, yeah, we'll do that. I can touch a lot of stuff.
First one, I was going to like. But it's.
Okay, all right. Because everything.
Yeah.
And I go like, I don't know how. Pick your mother. She likes shopping. She likes shopping. Going to get it. What is my house? Yeah. And then hope. Yes. We have 7,000 employees that plant. Farms. Then you.
In the middle, so good. I'm about to take it, but I guess
She's got it. She's getting it done.
So you don't.
Oh my gosh. My, little thing, my eyes, my ears.
And I want to do more. All day, so I'm getting all right. It's the change, like. Cannabis corporations. I see. And then move from transnational corporations, let's see. And the guys just talking to them, can you use for the code? It was always trying to find this. So I gotta get friends. Thanks for the zero. Wait a minute.
Light will correct me too.
Oh.
Yeah.
We got to sit here.
Yes.
What else? They're good. I believe they The young folks that went over.
I've seen.
Oh,
Yeah. No, I'm fine. I mean, I saw it. Yeah.
I think
If you want to get them. Yes. You gonna go get the rest of them? Yeah. I'm mostly looking at. Really close to. Yes, I live in Bridgetown. He's right. Oh, so I couldn't see. Okay. May I have your attention, please? I'd like to call the endowment committee to order. Ms. Vandenberg, will you please take the roll?
Chairman Kevin Holloway.
Present.
Treasurer Johnson Atlantic. Trustee Bill Bell. Trustee Keith Chadwell. Trustee Lisa Martinez. Trustee Alexandria Valladares. Have a quorum.
Thank you. The Division of Administration and Finance will share two informational items as noted on the agenda. Are there any questions for Vice Chancellor Mathers? Questions? Okay, hearing none. Well, we should have reviewed the report and then if there are not any questions, you have questions?
Yeah, just a couple.
Okay, please.
Sorry, not page, we're not. The pages are numbered, so I'm gonna go, I think it's page 2. I noticed that the effective policy and the numbers, we were doing out of policy or out of range. When do you guys pronounce this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Here you go. And could we go to page 2 on the video?
Oh,
It's,
it's
I
in
think
me.
it's in, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I think it's page 2. There we go.
Oh,
Policy effective 9/22. So you can see the actuals, we're at 90%, so we're out of policy. So when does the rebalance, when's the plan rebalance, and the rebalance is on a quarterly basis, monthly basis, yearly basis?
it's an annual basis. But again, the board has the ability to provide insight for us to change that. We will have our annual activity, and the advisors will be at the April meeting. We'll have both advisors, exponents, and UNC management. We will also include, since we are providing information on the foundation endowment, we'll have someone from the foundation's finance committee also be present to discuss how they go through their endowment process.
And so we give you that this is an annual basis, it'll be in April, and we'll talk about rebalancing the early to be.
Yes.
And then the second
Trustee.
question.
Hello, sorry. And then for, I think it's the last page, where they're talking about the management fees. Does the management fee for both the firms, does that include advisory and investment management fees, or just, or is there?
You said you're on the last page.
Sorry, it's,
This is the last page.
It doesn't have the number, so it's,
I'm not showing it on the screen.
yeah, that's all. Yeah, actually, it is the last.
Okay.
With the notes,
with the notes?
Okay.
On the management fees, so that, does that include, advisory and
It
investment management
includes
fees?
all.
Okay,
Yes.
and then the final question was just, I was a bit confused when they're talking about the returns, they're talking about the benchmark. On the benchmark, so it says, if you look at, sorry, page.
I'll make sure we have page numbers next time. That's totally my fault.
On page 5.
Okay.
For respondents. So is the benchmark, so I read in the notes, I thought the benchmark, it says somewhere that it's S&P 500 index, I think. Let's see, but yet under the performance benchmark, then we've got a 60/40 S&P and Russell. What is the actual benchmark of the portfolio?
So I would have to go back to our UNC management advisors to follow up on that question.
Okay, and then I would say the last thing, if you look at the benchmark across since inception, we have to be the benchmark. So they could explain, and maybe that would be a question for them, if they could explain definitely between, because, and I think we had a great year last year, and it really underperformed the benchmark, so curious, and I know that, I think in the September meeting, that they talked about that we didn't have a lot of tech in, so I don't know if they had the Magnificent Seven, and I don't know if that was because of the specific benchmarks that we're using. So curious to, again, find out about more information about that would be great.
So I'll follow up with you directly and get those questions, and I'll send it to our advisors in advance so that they are prepared to discuss that when we come back to the board meeting in April.
Okay, great, thank you.
Those are really good questions, great questions. Because the thing is, we can make sure that in April, if they come, if they're forum before, I'd like to really ask these questions.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, that concludes our report. And next we can have this. Yes. Put your name, please.
Can you do this again for next one?
That's so right. We'll bring the name tags and so that you.
Okay, she has one, the video switch, so that you know.
Okay.
You're not on the final.
Yeah. What else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, not. Yeah, I'm on here.
Trustee State, everybody needs to help.
Trustee Slade. And James Mitchell, let me go find him.
You can help them.
Yeah.
And James Mitchell.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. They're going to bring your, yeah, so,
Probably about the.
right, you can see, where,
You're glad to enjoy this.
Yes, man. That will always go.
No,
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
all right.
somebody.
Hey, down here.
Oh, slaves. You're good right here.
Hello. Good afternoon, committee members. I bring to order the Committee on Finance and Facilities. Ms. Vandenberg, please take roll.
Chairwoman Lisa Martinez,
Here.
trustee Keith Chadwell.
Here.
Kevin Holloway,
Here.
trustee James Mitchell, trustee Cornell Slade.
Here.
Have a quorum.
Great. The Division of Administration and Finance will share 5 informational items as listed on the agenda. DC Mathers.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And so I think all of you have the agenda in front of you. I walked before you going back over that. We do have quite a bit of information because we did not have the meeting in November. So some of these items that we're sharing have occurred at this point a few months ago, but I think it's still important information for our board to have. So for our state fund budget update, the state approved the general appropriation budget in October versus July 1. All state employees were granted. Okay. I'm sorry, the state approved a budget in mid-October. All state employees were granted a 7% increase, which was 4% in the current fiscal year and an additional 3% in year 24-25 next year. And this is across any fund type, not just employees that are funded by the state general appropriations. We also had several additional items in the budget, include from the UNC system and NCCU. So based on our enrollment performance and metrics from 22-23, we are now funded for enrollment growth or decline in arrears. So it happens in the next year. So based on our enrollment last year, we had to take a budget reduction of $1.8 million in this year, even though we did have an overall 5.5% growth in our enrollment this year over last year. But these numbers are reflective of what happened in 22-23 versus 21-22. So this includes the enrollment change of 2.4 million negative and a performance change of an additional 591. So the total was 1.8. NCCU met or exceeded 2 of the 5 performance metrics, which you have heard the chancellor reference in other meetings, and also I think the provost may have mentioned it this morning. Okay. Other additions to the state fund budget include the completion assistance program that is non-recurring at this point. Those are funds that have been provided to UNC system institutions to help students who are at the last leg. So if you have a student who's on path to graduate this May, or even, could have been December, if what was standing between them and graduation was a balance, then these funds are able to be used to bring them to the end so that they're able to participate in graduation and actually graduate. Athletic appropriation, this is new. Funds are provided for athletics. You may remember that last year, the UNC system commissioned an athletic report on the economic impact of athletic programs statewide across all UNC systems, UNC system schools. From that information, they did take something to the state legislature, and currently there are 10 schools that are participating in this. We have NCCU received $1.118 million. I want to stress though, this is not additional funding. This is not new funding to the bottom line. What they asked us to do is for institutions that are using other institutional support to support your athletics program, and we are. In our budget, you will see every year we have had $2.5 million that's coming from other auxiliary enterprises to support athletics. We are now taking this 1.18 and using that and then reducing the support that we are providing from the auxiliary down to 1.5. So it's not new funding. It is funding that offsets what we're already at the point that we're continuing with giving donations of other ways to bring funds into athletics. It could be used as new funding. We will continue to get it. This is made possible by the inclusion or the approval of the college betting that was approved recently in this budget. And that's what these funds are coming from. They do expect based on the projections that the amount that will go to universities, gaming, I'm sorry, not betting, gaming. And so they do expect that this number will increase based on the amount of gaming that goes on for college sports nationwide. Nursing faculty salary adjustments. There was also a legislative mandate to increase all nursing faculty salaries by a minimum of 10% and a maximum of 15%. And there was some funding provided to each institution to support that. That has gone into place. We did update those nursing faculty salaries that went into place as of the end of January. And we have submitted our report to the system office. And so it's trying to bring some parity to nursing salaries and also keep our nursing faculty here so that they can continue to train the next generation of nurses. I'm not getting this far. So. This just expressed numerically everything I just went over. So second quarter financials. So here I'm just giving you a recap of through the end of the second quarter, ended December, and where we expect to land by the end of the year. Our projected carry forward is 2.28 million. As you remember, we use carry forward each year. We are able to carry 2.5% of our appropriations budget forward to the next year to use for small capital projects and other activities that we deem appropriate that can be used with non-recurring funds. And so we are about where we would expect for this time of year. Our tuition right now at 24 million for the end of December. These would have been pulled just before we billed. So the billing for spring comes at the end of December and is due in January. So when you look at it at the next, when we review this the next time, it'll reflect spring semester receipts. Right now, this is showing all costs. This is the University Auxiliaries. This is all of our revenue generating units minus athletics. And you can see what we're doing for the year. For the sales and service for overall auxiliaries, we're at 91% of budget. That was as of December. So we do expect that we will actually over realize that budget by the end of the year. Sales and service includes everything from, doesn't include ticket sales for athletics, that's somewhere else, but it's retail, all other activities. It will include not only retail, but it includes all of the food trucks and everything that we had during the games, food trucks that we have, Tuesdays and Thursdays here on campus, anything that is not a bill to the students fall in sales and service. So we do expect to add to our overall fund balance when we get to the end of the year. This is athletics. So let's start at the bottom. We know that we have had a deficit in athletics in that fund balance, and what we are committed to doing is maintaining that deficit at the same level and making sure that we're not adding to it while we develop a plan to mitigate this fund balance over the next several years. Athletics so far has had a very good year. We expect that they will continue to. As of December, we were not reflecting all game guarantees. Those will come in. Game guarantees usually hit your accounts in May. So the contracts specify, and they basically have until June 30th to turn in all of the game guarantees from the different institutions. And normally we see those beginning in about May. We do see reflected here in athletics the change in employee salaries. As we mentioned earlier with the legislative salary increase, that's something that we have to be sensitive to because athletics and all of the revenue generating areas have to absorb any state increase that is approved. So the next series of slides, and I'm not going to go over them in detail unless you would like, but we just tried to look at the last 5 years of our financials, expenditures, and revenues to kind of see what trends were established, what we can see as we move forward, projecting going forward. This is a part of what we're looking at when we're doing the all funds budget, which will come to you in April to review and approve. And so we got increasing personnel costs reflective of legislative salary increases, labor market salary adjustments, that was the LMAR last year, and actively filling necessary vacant positions. We also have investment in equipment and capital projects, small capital projects. We see an increase in state appropriated scholarship and grant support. And then what's most evident is a change in the mix of tuition revenue. There is a noticeable decline in in-state revenue and an increase in out-state revenue. And that reflects what we've seen on our campus with the in-state student population shrinking and our out-of-state population student getting larger. That is something that we have to continue to monitor very closely, particularly only for the first time freshmen in that first year, because that's
that's where you have to make sure that you are staying within that cap so that you're penalized. Once we're past the freshman year, bring them up. You know, it doesn't matter whether they're in or out of state, but you're looked at, scrutinized in that first year. Okay. So this is just numerically represents what I just went over from fiscal year 2018-19 through 22-23 last year. And then I also included some chart information. This is the same information that was shared with the Board of Governors that just talks about our spend and how much we're spending in each area and how much we're collecting, where our revenue is coming from. So you can see for revenue, the largest portion of our revenue is state appropriations. As we continue to move forward, we will need, as an institution, to do more and more to increase the revenue in areas other than state appropriations, because we know that state appropriations could possibly go down. Are there any questions on the finance portion of the report? Yes, sir.
Are in the athletic side, in terms of revenues, are they down because the student enrollment is down?
No, they're not down because of student enrollment. In fact,
asking why.
why are they down? We don't have all of the game guarantees are not reflected yet, and some of the donor support is not yet reflected as of December.
So if I'm sorry, if the enrollment was up, would student fees be up? Maybe I'm asking it that way.
Yes. If the enrollment.
It's on page, second quarter financial.
Right, okay, so what you see right here, and it actually does kind of reflect that it's up. This is through the fall. So what's not here is spring billing, because those bills come in January and are not due until the end of January, and the students that are on payment plans are paying through between now and May. So when we look at this again in April, it should look different.
Well, maybe I'm not answering the question correctly. Maybe I'm not looking at it correctly. I see a line that says student fees, authorized budget. But then I see year-end projections.
I see what you're talking about. That is a mistake. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. 7% across the board increase.
Yes.
So the rich get richer and the other ones don't. So the gulf widens between the higher salaried people, universities, and the lesser ones.
In theory, yes.
Okay, in fact, probably yes. Two, nursing with a 10%, 10-15% range in increases. Who makes that determination if it's 10% or 15%?
So that information is provided to the provost and academic affairs.
We do.
And so we did it here on campus.
And
No, I think the quick question is, who makes the determination that nursing salary had to be increased? That was a legislative mandate that came to the system.
but the mandate had a range.
Yes.
So I'm saying within that range, who makes the determination whether he gets 10% or 15%?
Well, based on the funds that we have here on campus, because we were given some money for it, but we need more than what they give us to do all of the faculty that we wanted to do. So
Okay, but is it performance based or just across the board?
we have to ask.
It was not across the board. Universities had the discretion based on where their salaries are, who was in what position, what are the criteria that we use from academic affairs to determine between 10 and 15.
I think trustee Steele's question is a good question, because what he's asking is, within the amount that we were given, how do we determine who gets what in the nursing? And I think that question earlier.
And I would have to refer to the provost.
Right, okay. And my last clarification, you say the athletics, I got two now. Athletics got $1 million, but that replace money is actually So the net is we got an extra $1 million. I.e., the money that the operating fund, some other entity would have used to fill that gap.
Okay.
They have less, $1 million more gap.
So a net for the university,
Yes.
correct, it is $1 million more to the university because that's $1 million that the auxiliary units did not have to use to support athletics.
And my very last one, we had a reduction in state funding because of population and hitting 2 of 5 goals.
So we received an enrollment reduction based on a decrease in enrollment from 21, 22, and 22, 23. We actually received an increase of 591,000 for hitting 2 of the 5 metrics. If we hit more of the 5 metrics, then we would get more funding.
I think, let me try to assist a little bit on that question. I think the question that Dr. Slade is asking is that enrollment funding comes from 2 pockets.
Yes.
One is from the actual enrollment growth, and the other one is from performance measures. Based on the methodology that they use in calculating, the metrics, we actually made $500,000 plus from the metrics. The enrollment growth, we actually lost money there. We were in deficit because of the enrollment of the previous year. So our deficit would have been greater than what it was if we did not get the $500,000 from
The metrics.
the metrics. So the $500,000 that we got from the metrics actually lessened, the overall deficit that we would have gotten based on the actual enrollment growth number.
So if you hit all 5, what would you
Yeah, that's my question.
If we hit a 5 based on their formula, and I have to, say to you, I'm not completely, I don't know, I can't tell you how they calculate it all, but my sense is that if out of 5 we were hitting, because I think that they're equally distributed, I'm not sure the weight that is given to each of them. Because I think the weight is what they look at. Each metric is weighted.
Different weight.
Right. And so it's possible that we could hit $1 million plus, or even more than that. I can't tell you exactly how much because the weight, I'm not entirely familiar with how much weight is assigned to each metrics, but it's a good thing that we were able to hit some of those metrics. Otherwise, our deficit in enrollment would have been greater than what it was. Now, Ms. Madison did say to you that because we're funded in arrears, the enrollment growth this year, which was 5% plus, is not figured into this yet. Okay, because we're talking about the year before that. But I think the best way to answer your question, if we are going to maximize our enrollment growth funding, we should be looking to do well in both areas, particularly the enrollment growth, because it's not just the amount of money that you get. When we are in the positive place, the money that we get also brings in faculty lines. In other words, that's the only way that you can bring in new faculty members. You can't say, well, I got $10,000, I'm going to hire new faculty here, because it comes from the state line. It's a permanent funding. So for those 2 reasons, we've got to pay attention to both of them.
Can I think there's a further on question to both of you. So I think for the metrics, I think what we do, so you have a performance target and then you outperform. So let's say the performance target is 100 students graduating with this, you hit 150, then it keeps going up, right? So there's a threshold. So my question is, actually 2 questions. So if we, and you may not be able to quantify if it's possible. So if we receive more money, do we receive more money from enrollments or do we receive more money for the metrics. If we were to hit all five
It
metrics,
will always be enrollment.
okay, so that should be, is that the kind of priority is
Yes.
kind of the
Yes.
enrollment is number one?
Well,
Other
both,
metrics are-
but you will definitely get more funding through the enrollment growth calculation than a performance metric calculation.
And then my other question was, and so we hit two metrics, so versus either other HBCUs and or other in the UC system, how are we doing? Are on
We
par?
are kind of in the middle.
In the middle?
Mhm. But we can provide that
We
information.
can provide that for you because to the website. Yes, we are pretty much aligned with most of the HBCUs. You know, there may be one or two with one more, so, but we're pretty much, in other words, the benchmarks that we struggle with, most of our HBCUs also struggle with.
And then my other question is just for future budget kind of allocation, so I know that the trend has been that we are hiring for open positions. Based on, you know, competitive salary, and having to pay people a lot more money to be here. How much does, and I know salaries is our major expenditure. So how do we raise the money in order to support, you know, world-class teachers,
Sure.
professors coming here? And what does that do on budget?
So the primary way that we do that is through the enrollment growth, funding. When we don't have that, but we still have some of those same faculty and staff that we need to retain, then we have to get really creative. We have hire into vacant positions, but what we also do is use some of those vacant positions sometimes and say, okay, we need to take funding from this position and put it over here to increase the salary so that it's competitive, attractive, or that we can retain someone that's already here. So it's still getting used, but we may take two positions, funding from two positions to get the salary, that's necessary to bring them on top of that.
Actually, that happens all the time. It's not something that, it happens all the time. In the enrollment funding formula, there is a certain amount of money that you get for your faculty line. This is standard, $77,000. That number is still may have changed a little bit.
May have gone up a little
I
bit with
remember
LI.
the last, the
The
77,000.
last time we see.
And then it comes with a number of supports, library, administrative. And so when you add all that together, it gives you a faculty line per the state, say roughly 100,000 plus. That's for each faculty line. Now, the way we address the question that you are raising, and not just NCCU, all of our institutions. So if you hire someone, I hate to use some majors, let's say for instance, you hire someone in English, so we'll be using English. If the average salary in English is 60,000, you use 60,000, you still have a lap salary on one position because the one position is 77. So if you hire someone in chemistry where the salary is 135 base, that means you need one position and a half from another position to make that happen. That happens all the time. And how we determine our salary base. But the other thing I would add to that, we are also allowed to use money from our foundation endowment. The unfortunate thing is that we don't have that kind of money. So let's say, for instance, you bring in someone in pharmaceutical sciences, and their salary is way up there. We're not going to hire them with $77,000. You can combine two lines to offer that person, but we can provide incentives. The system allows us to do that now in order to be competitive. If we had money in the foundation, we could say, well, we're going to give you 2 extra research assistants. We're going to give you a startup. With all of that will come from the foundation, which will help them to come. So that's another reason why we need to put some effort into raising some money so that we have this flexibility to be competitive when we are recruiting this other faculty. But the baseline, as she says, is that when we get those positions, they already owns a predetermined amount of money. And in many cases, you may need two or three of those to offer some salary to some professors, in some very heavy areas. Yeah, and some areas don't use the whole lot based on what the market is. So it's a kind of a fine tuning game.
Chairman Martinez, trustee Alexander.
Yeah, I just wanted to get some clarification on this funding request. I know in 2024 short session in the enrollment, there was a negative number that was associated with our 2023 enrollment, right? Was there something that happened between Dr. Jackson's, Dr. Jackson gave us on September 27, 2023 an enrollment 7965, which would have increased from our previous enrollment. And it seemed like that we got a hit on a negative $1,284.85 from either the General Assembly or the system, however this is done. Was there something that happened that made that number not be that number anymore? Because to me, that number should have been, we should not have gotten hit based on an enrollment fallacy. Or was there something, there's something I'm missing there?
I want to make sure I'm understanding what you said. You said that the number that was shared for 22 or 23, 24?
For 23 was a 7,965.
Okay.
So by the current year, the current number.
Last year.
According to the September 27, 2023 report.
Oh, that's this year. Okay. So the enrollment is factored in arrears, the formula. And so while we do show growth this year over last year for the regular term, we did not show growth from 21-22 to fiscal year 22-23. And so
let me put it this way to trustee Alexander. I think he would probably understand it better. The previous year, before the current year, we were down by 5%.
Okay.
Okay. That is the previous year. That is 21, 20, 22, 23. We were down by 5%. So we already were in a negative of 2 million plus there. The current year, we went up by 5.6%, which only brings us to where we were the year before that. Do you follow me?
I understand.
So in other words, you lose 5% the year before, you gain 5% this year, it brings you back to, we're still not quite at the level that we were. The year before that, we were 8,011 students.
Right.
When we lost by 5%, that took us way down. That was in 22, 23. Then last year, 23, 24, we went up by 5.6%.
Got it.
So we're still climbing out of that negative, if you will. It's going to take us a couple of years. So that's why it's very critical for us this year that as we begin to work on our enrollment, not only do we want to maintain 79, as you said, but 6, in order for us to gain, we need to exceed that number.
Okay. Yeah. Because I went on the Board of Governors website and they produce these numbers for all of the institutions.
Yes.
And their line item says 2023 enrollment change. So they're looking at 2022 to 2023. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And that was the 5% differential. I'm just trying to understand the number because I'm not a bit.
Which July 1 of 1 year to June 30th. So, okay.
All right.
We're on a fiscal year versus half.
Got it. Thank you.
This is not about the enrollment. I want to go back to athletics so that for the athletic committee and others, you understand it. Prior to COVID, we were at a position where the university provided about $3.5 million in support of athletics. The expectation over the next 5 years prior to COVID is that we were supposed to be at over $17 million in support of athletics. So right now you can see that we're still kind of walking the ladder to try to get to where we were and then to get to that 17. The reason that 17 was critical at the time as a forecast is that in order to compete at the level we wanted to, we had to have that funding, as we talked about scholarships and some other things in place to get the students here. Now, NIL came into play, and as a result of that, that number should be higher exponentially. So when you do your strategy around where we're going with athletics, make sure you factor that in going forward. And what she was explaining on the 2.5 million, I didn't want you to forget that. That's from other sources at the university to help athletics. But the 1.8, 1.1, which was incremental, that doesn't go to athletics to add to that 2.5. They still are just going to get 2.5. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, and I think this may be helpful because since we have a lot of new board members, it's always very important to put things into perspective so that the new board members can understand how athletics work. The time that you were talking about, Mr. Chairman, the athletics was getting a subsidy from
Yes.
student, fees to the tune of almost $3 million a year. And this comes from fees that students pay to subsidize athletics because athletics is always running in the right. There's no time that they've actually made it black. And that went on for several years because the board, at some point, I would say probably maybe 6-7 years ago, asked that we reduce the amount that is coming from student fees to athletics by $1 million a year.
That's right.
In order to get to net zero coming from athletic fees to support, that never happened because athletics was supposed to raise money from other areas to be able to plug that hole. That never happened. And we're still there. So the goal moving forward now is that at some point, we're gonna have to relieve, the subsidy that is coming from athletic fees to subsidize, student fees to subsidize athletics in order for that fund balance to be able to be realized. And so without going into any lengthy, this is not just NCCU, let me be clear. All of our institutions are in the same boat because all athletics are in deficit. But our goal is to be able to, through other funds that we raise, be able to reduce the amount of money that is coming from student fees to support athletics.
I assume you said all HBCU athletics are.
And not just HBCUs.
Very few universities across the country make money.
Yeah.
That's why you see the consolidation of conferences around the country. A lot of it for revenue in order to fund it, so they can be funded.
Only the Power Five.
Except the Power Five, really. And so.
I have a lot of schools.
Yeah, and that's, to be frank with you, we really, I have to be thankful to the legislators because that was part of the conversation that we took to the UNC system, took to the legislators to say that athletics is a vital part of what we do. And since many of us do not make ready, but they fulfill a very critical service on campus, why not begin to appropriate some funding from the General Assembly to support athletics? And through that effort is what you've seen here in terms of what will come from the giving. And that is going to grow as more money comes in to support athletics. So they are listening to us in that area. The $1 million that you just talked about is an example of that. There is no institution, maybe I don't know if we have one or two that is actually making revenue on athletics. It's just the way it is. But that does not mean that we need not to reduce, you know. Some other ways back, you know that that's what led to us letting baseball go, because we were trying to find ways to reduce the cost in athletics and looking for ways to reduce our expenditures. Positions were eliminated in some cases. Certain costs were reduced. There was some consolidation of positions from administration and finance to athletics to reduce the overhead cost so that we can maintain that. And we're still doing that. And the question that was raised this morning, and I think it might be you that raised a question to A.D. Perkins, that one of the goals that we wanted to push when we brought him on is really to increase that fundraising. And I think it's a good thing because it takes time to cultivate that friendship. He's only been here for a year, roughly a year. And he's been working very closely with A.D. Perkins. And I think the point that he was making this morning is that it's going to take some time to be able to get a major gift to support what we're doing in athletics. I hope that that's helpful to some of the new board members.
Do you add anything to the university system?
The way the legislation is written, all gaming revenue or profit will go to the universities.
So when these guys start betting next month in North Carolina, that money goes to the university system?
So
I think less administrative fees, most of it is set aside for the universities.
Really?
not all of them, but they are going to support the tackling the regulatory legislation now. We don't know exactly how much it will be because we don't know how much it's going to be yet. As it comes in, a certain portion will be coming to our institution to support things.
The model was like that for education.
But
But it took it, gave one hand and out the other.
Any other questions?
So I do have just a few slides for facilities. If we don't have any more finance questions, then I'll move through them very quickly. The new School of Business, we know that we're gonna do the ribbon cutting tomorrow, and you'll get to see that building. 24/7 Collaborative Learning and Research Center, most of you should have passed that steel grid that's right there on the corner of Fayetteville and Boston Street. That is actually in construction, and we expect it to be completed by mid-September 2024. The radio station renovation, you can't see that, that's inside of Ferris and Newton Hall, but we have started on the radio station project and upfit a renovation to bring that up to HD quality, similar to what we did in the television studio about 4 years ago. Baines Hall demolition, probably don't need to say much, everybody has seen it when you came in, it is coming down. We do expect that it will be completed by mid-April, and we will do landscape. We're going to have a green space that's there for now. We may include the sidewalk to get from one side to the other, but we will leave that as a green space for future programming based on our master plan. Lee Biology and Tailored Education building renovations, these are still in progress. They designer selection is complete. They are the designers are working through the plans that will actually come back to the committee. We do expect, based on because these projects were approved now 2 years ago, so we do expect that through inflation, that the cost of construction is going to increase. So we'll work with the UNC system because the system and the state legislature have set aside some funding to support capital projects in North Carolina for the cost escalation that we're finding in construction. So we'll work with them to look at how we mitigate what we already know is going to be an escalation in inflation. Okay, Riddick Field, turf and drainage. My pictures are old. If you pack it, well, we'll pack it going to the 1910. You will see that they are actually rolling out the turf now. So instead of seeing this dirt, you're going to see actual green coming. So we will make our goal of having this finished by the end of the month.
first week in March, and it will be ready for, spring football.
To the slide on the biology building and the education building. Because I'm not sure if, board members are aware that those, funds, the renovation funds were appropriated through the general assembly. The Lee Biology building, I believe we got, it's been what, that was actually appropriated,
It was actually appropriated the year they did not approve the budget.
the year they did not approve the budget, so we are still drawing down funds on that. The Taylor Education building was appropriated.
The following
the
year,
following-
21, 22.
Right, and I think in the most recent, we also got some
Did deal.
dent building, and I believe Duke is in there.
Mhm.
So I wanted to make sure that it's clear when people say, well, you see, you don't get money from the legislation. That is not true. I think what we do get money for renovations and stuff like that, that's determined by the US system. And so I wanted to be sure that people understand that those are appropriated renovations that we receive funding from the general assembly.
One question, you didn't say anything about funding, I thought we were working on that.
McLean, the name change.
No, building, I thought there's some renovation going on in the building, nothing for McLean.
Well, it wouldn't be state appropriate, so we may
Oh.
be doing small capital projects within McLean, but it's not scheduled for a major renovation.
Good.
AE Elder Upfit, one-stop shop, so we have, we're in the process of relocating several student-facing offices that are listed below. We're also looking at bringing over additional student-facing offices so that it's truly a one-stop shop, but the goal is to have those areas co-located in the same area, so that particularly when you are going through SOAR and new students are coming in, everything is kind of right there and they're not running back and forth to different places. It also happens to be across the street from this location, so it really bodes well for parents and students coming over here to get something to eat, to relax, and then you go back across the street to take care of your business. And so we will look to see how we can add student accounting, the two offices that are not reflected here are student accounting and financial. So we have to continue to figure out how to program them into this space, and we will have a complete one-stop shop. The New Market Tax Credit Rural Health Hub, just want to update you, many of you participated in the 2 special call meetings. We did close this deal after receiving your approval. And so we talked about this on the calls about what the deal is going to allow. The BBRI will continue to conduct multidisciplinary and interinstitutional research focused on health issues that disproportionately affect minority and underserved populations. It gives us a permanent presence in Eastern North Carolina. We, have the new operating business Rural Health Hub. And then it's assisting with the health services for local residents and gives us a continuous pipeline of research participants as we're looking at the interaction of drug discovery and things of that nature. And then it also, most importantly, allows us to build a permanent presence in Eastern North Carolina to recruit rural students. Rural student enrollment is actually one of the performance metrics that we are reviewed. So this will allow us to have a presence there and to make sure that we are recruiting students from that area. So there is a website. These are some screenshots from the website. It's also in your PowerPoint. You can actually click on the website and see the information and the things that Rural Health is going to be working on. So that is my presentation. I can answer any questions related to some of our facilities.
Any questions? Okay, thank you
Well,
very much.
Actually, just one comment about this new initiative. Have you done a press release? I know that we voted on it to approve, but is there a press release planned for it?
There will be a press release coming out. It hasn't come out officially yet. We are working between Dr. Kumar and Mr. Frusi to have that information and will be released you know, through all of our media outlets, and we'll have.
Thank you.
Is that
I guess. It should. Now we're here.
Oh, actually, mine works.
That's good. And, I mean, this is really good, and I know that, it's, I know that it's brave, it is bold, for NCCU to be in this space. This is the very first, type of, initiative that we've engaged, that does not cost NCCU money, but at the same time puts us in a particular region of the state that really needs. And so if you think about this, you can see how we're moving the footprint of the university, where major flagship have always been. And now you have an HBCU, a smaller school that's able to begin to make this sort of imprint in these areas. For me, changing the lives of people who live in that area through what we do in our research, and yet at the same time create, some form of revenue for us. I think we need to be in this place moving forward. We want to play with the big boys, and so I want to thank you all for considering this initiative and for approving it. I know there is nothing that is completely risk-free, but you can make progress if you are afraid to take a little risk. So I just want to say that this is great for NCCU, it's great for Halifax area, and it's great for the state of North Carolina.
Agree. Any other further questions on finance or facilities? If not, the meeting is adjourned.
You. Well, our next meeting, maybe Tracy can help us with it. Dr. Evans.
The shuttle will be here at 4:30 to pick everyone up, take me over to the 1910 lounge. We're checking to see if they can come a little bit earlier, but right now, 4:30.
It can come right, so you don't have to.
You can do this up right here outside.
Yes, outside on the.
Could you explain it again, please?
We don't want you to go to the hotel, because if you go back to the hotel, you may not come back. So we just want to move on to the reception, spend as much time as you want, and then from there. Much better. And you don't look at me. I'm not thinking, oh, so this, come on. I know. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Look, we gonna check extracting and then deep fry. How you doing, Bill? Mr. Ortiz. I read. Bring somebody. He's really important. Yeah, I have some kids. I was really like that. Excuse me, who's that? Yeah. Yes.
They just took too long. So I was not.
What do you think?